For real and unbiased sports news and reviews, from cricket to football and everything in between, with in depth interviews from your favorite sports icons. Check out The Bench Meeting, hosted by Kenneth Bob, on Sundays from 4 to 5 p.m. Only on Win Media SKN.
Good afternoon, one and all. Welcome to a special edition of Bench Meeting. Actually in the process of watching the England versus Italy final, so I know a lot of you sports fans will probably not even be tuned in at this point in time, because if you're anything like me, you are captivated by what's going on the screen. For a quick update for those who are not, England have the opportunity right now to win their first ever international competition since 1966, when they were last won the World Cup. Despite referring to themselves as the home of football, they're leading after the second minute, 1-0 against Italy in the Euro 2020-2021 final. A well-taken strike by Luke Shaw, who was assisted by Kieran Trippier. So it's been a very fast-paced game. Lots of activities going on, lots of exchanges of tackles and bit of theatrics here and there. Italy have not yet gotten themselves into the game as much as they may want to, and the hope is that at some point in time, for them at least, those who support the Italians, that they can find a way back into this game and make it interesting, and not let it be a long 1-0. As one of my friends in the chat groups indicated, it could very well be for England. But the whole euphoria around the English progression throughout this Euro 2020 is a big story by itself. According to them, the trophy is coming home, or it's coming home. A little bit of controversy in the last semi-final, but they deservedly are there, as well as Italy. They have been consistent throughout the entire competition. In fact, they have not lost a game in the last 33 international matches they've played. So it is really and truly a test of the two best teams in this year's edition of the Euro 2020. Well, it's now being replayed in 2021. I would also like to, well, I'll get back to the Euros later on, because I actually was supporting France, who I thought were pre-tournament favorites, but their own internal fighting, as usual, tends to hurt their chances of doing as good as they can. And there are a number of different storylines coming out of this Euros that I guess we can touch on a little bit. But just to go through, and I must give my listeners and others an opportunity to know as well that I indicated that I will run through and go through the main topics for discussion today, but it very well could be a case that I could sign off a little bit earlier so as to watch the conclusion of the final. So forgive me for any lost content, and I will try to make up for it within the upcoming weeks. However, this weekend, it's for those who have been in St. Kitts, or who reside and live in St. Kitts. Despite it being a lockdown, the last 2 weeks has been, for sports fans, a very exciting period of time. We've had West Indies cricket, lots of it, 2020, which is obviously entertaining. According to Michael Holding, it's not really cricket, but again, that's another topic we can touch later on. We had some NBA basketball, which has turned up some surprising finalists, and we are actually 2 games into the NBA finals. This game 3 is going to be played at 8 o'clock tonight between the Phoenix Suns, who hold a 2-0 lead over the Milwaukee Bucks. The Suns have been this year's surprise package, but they're powered by the veteran Chris Paul, and he seems to have the hunger inside to win his first trophy. But you cannot discredit his supporting cast, who were able to do some of what they're doing even without him being there. Devin Booker, standout performer, among DeAndre Ayton, another standout performer among others. A very well-rounded, very well-balanced Phoenix Suns team, whom are currently up against the Milwaukee Bucks, They were finalists in the bubble. No, they were knocked out by the Heat. They were Eastern Conference finalists in the bubble, and they were knocked out by the Heat. But they retooled, regrouped, and came back again this year with pretty much the same cast, and they're able to represent the NBA Eastern Conference as the champions, and now are down 2-0 in the final. Now, I should also mention, for those of you who are familiar with the format of the basketball finals, it's usually the best out of 7 games, 4 of which will be played in Phoenix because of the better regular season record, more wins than Milwaukee would have had, and 3 of which will be played at home in Milwaukee. First 2 matches were played in Phoenix, and they made full use of their home court advantage, whilst Milwaukee now, they will have to try to do the same if they're trying to make anything out of this series, and not allow Phoenix to sweep them, as the common terminology that is used to describe when you're unable to gather a win in the finals. So there's a lot there for the basketball purists. I've often surmised that the COVID pandemic has leveled the playing field for a lot of these basketball franchises. The superstars, it's COVID, but it's also a bit of exhaustion in the sense that most of these star teams, the star power teams, such as the Los Angeles Lakers, the Brooklyn Nets, who had all the firepower coming into this, LA Clippers as well, another superstar team, had a lot of firepower coming into this. And these guys, what would have happened is that the last NBA season ended, and then this new one would have come into play within a matter of about a month to 2 months. Los Angeles Lakers would have won the last NBA final, and it's because of such a short turnover, these athletes aren't in any way robots. And because of this, you find that the superstars aren't able to give anything more of themselves. Teams that actually build on foundational basketball, the teams that are built on what the purists would understand as basketball basics and rules and how to play the game in its truest sense, without overloading on superstars, you would then begin to appreciate then the fact that teams like Phoenix Suns, teams like the Milwaukee Bucks, they now have begun to shine as a result of not being dependent on 1, 2 individuals, 1, 2 superstars, or 3 in the case of 4, 5 in the case of the Nets. They now have to play team basketball. And it is also noteworthy that both of these teams have been forced to play and win games without their major superstars. Chris Paul was down on the COVID protocol for quite some time, and the Phoenix Suns were still able to overcome what was then the Utah Jazz before they then overcame the Los Angeles Clippers in the Western Conference Finals. So there's a lot of interest for those basketball fans, as I said. Obviously, it's not the big market teams as we're accustomed to that's contesting the finals, but the viewership is up and the interest is up. And hey, it's not like we have anything else to do here in the Federation. We are going to be looking at basketball for the most part later on this evening. On a regional front, closer to home, we also have the mixed performances of the West Indies cricket team, who would have lost their series to South Africa, all of the series, because they would have played a test series and they lost that. And then they had a very interesting, a very intriguing 2020 series. And unfortunately, I think it came down to the final match, which South Africa would have won and took that series from them 3-2. One of the noteworthy things is that most of the games were decided on or around 160 runs. I don't think any team scored more than 170 in any match in that series, which is a tribute to the bowling attacks on both teams And South Africa was able to pull out the stops when necessary. West Indies, though, did shine. They won two of those matches, and all of them were closely contested. So South Africa having a better bowling attack, pace attack, and obviously better ranking at this point in time in World T20 cricket. They were expected victors, but we in the West Indies know our West Indians and T20 cricket especially, and know that we can be very unpredictable. So it may not have been the result we would have wanted, but I think there are a number of things going on, players being injured, players being rested. There were also a lot of the mixing and matching of different players, different stars shining at different points in time. Um, uh, so that it's a case where I know that they're trying to tweak their team for the T20 World Cup later on this year. It's also noteworthy that our St. Kitts Nevis Patriots athletes have all been a lot of them have all been represented in the matches so far. Chris Wayne Bravo, Chris Gale, Fabian Allen, Evan Lewis had a brilliant outing to start the series against South Africa. The Norjay, I believe his name is from South Africa. He also had a good run out, so hopefully he would have gained some greater familiarity with the pitches here in the region. Although most of all the games we played for the CPL in St. Kitts and Nevis. So it's good to see all of them getting an opportunity, as I said, to perform and to show them, give them a little bit of warm up, as it were, before the CPL competition gets St. Kitts and Nevis here. Oh, on the brighter side of things, the West Indies are now currently engaged in a series against the mighty Australians of all. And believe it or not, we have the Australians down 2-0 already in this series. Last match being played last night, Shimron Hetmyer was the standout performer for us there, and Hayden Walls Jr., both very young, up-and-coming cricketers, athletes, and it's a very bright and promising start for the West Indies in this current tour Australian tour of the West Indies, matches being played at the Darren Sammy Stadium in St. Lucia. The results from the last match, I can probably share that quite quickly with you. It was a very good showing. As I remember, everybody played a little contribution in the entire match, and it is a good result for the West Indies, as I said. Let me see if I can quickly just run through some of these scores here. And this last match is the evening. Oh, still have at least 3 minutes. So something to be excited about. Nonetheless, Shimron Hetmyer is the player of the match. Wendell Simmons made 30 runs off 21 balls. Andre Fletcher, 9 off 7. Chris Gale, unfortunately, 13 off 16. By Marsh, inside edge onto the stumps. Shimron Hetmyer, he fired them with 36 ball, 61 runs. And it was an extremely good performance from him. And he was capably supported by Dwayne Bravo, who was not out on 47 of 34 balls, and Andre Superman Russell, who fired 24 of 8. In terms of our defending this total, there was nothing noteworthy about the Australian bowling attack. West Indies pretty much had their way with them, and wouldn't bother to go through the sake of time. Australian batting, however, Cottrell had a brilliant start. got the wicket of Matthew Wade. Aaron Finch went to Fidel Edwards, who didn't complete his 4 over, allotted 4 over allocation. I can't say whether it was injury or not, but I am aware that Lyndon Simmons had that. So one more. Second. Mitchell Marsh was the stand-up performer for the second match in a row for Australia. He made 54 of 42. He was caught bravo off the bowling of Hayden Walsh, who was really coming through. He actually had a quick fire 3 wicket in the sense that he bowled Josh Philippe, excellent delivery. Then he also had Moises Henry caught or Fabian Allen. Quick fire 3 wickets within his spell. There were no other notable run scorers for the Australians, the extras being 16. Everyone else scored less than that in extras. In terms of the bowling, however, we have Sheldon Cottrell with 2 wickets, economy of 7.33. Fidel Edwards, as I said, he only had 1 wicket. He was injured after 4.36. Bowling run rate, economy rate. Lyndon Simmons had 1 run off. That's not much. Andre Russell had 3 overs, 22 runs, 1 wicket, economy of 7.33. Dwayne Bravo, his usual industriousness, got 1 wicket, economy rate of 9.66. Given the fact that he usually bowls the death overs, that tends to run his more than others. Fabian Allen had 4. His bowled out his 4 overs. 22 runs without taking a wicket. Hayden Walsh had 4 overs, 29 runs, 3 wickets, 7.25 economy. And Chris Gayle finished it up with a wicket and 1 run off of his 2 balls in the final match. So West Indies not looking bad at all. In terms of the T20 format of the game, we do have some other matches coming up in terms of fixtures. Tomorrow being the 12th, we have a T20. Then again on the 14th, it will be another T20, and then on the 16th, it will be another T20. And then the first one-day international would be on the 20th, the second on the 22nd, and the third on the 24th. So all short format games for the Australian tour of the West Indies. And if it is that the West Indies can build on this current performance here, then it would serve them well going forward into the CPL and then the World Cup as we too. A bit touch back again a bit on some football. I wanted to touch some international football where, because as I said, this whole weekend has been very significant in terms of overall sports and results. And one area to see would be Argentina winning the Copa America last night. I was able to watch that match. Very, very tense match. Very, very cagey match. They won 1-0. And they themselves have not won a Copa America in the last 28 years. In fact, it is even longer than that, because the last major title 28 years ago was the World Cup, and that was in the days of Diego Maradona, for those of you who are familiar with the legend Diego Maradona. And so, and then this is a lot of the hype around this has been with regard to Lionel Messi, whom he himself would have been working pretty hard to win some sort of international trophy of some kind. And he could not have done it. For some reason, there's always been some failure at 4 different international finals that he would have appeared in and unable to cross that bridge. And finally, last night, through the boot of Angel Di Maria, they were able to finally bring home a Copa America title so that Messi could add that international title to his long list of club accolades that he would have received with Barcelona. Kudos to him. He also received the player of the tournament. He was extremely good for the tournament. But you also have to give recognition to the goalkeeper, Ebi Martinez, who plays for Aston Villa in the English Premier League. He had a sensational tournament and was pivotal in eliminating Colombia from the semi-finals in the penalty shootout, where he would have saved three of the Colombian penalties. So, as I said, going back to the match last night, though, Brazil had more possession of the ball. They were not as penetrative as Brazil is known to be. One of the claims is that this Brazil team doesn't have the star power and the ability and skill of the previous Brazilian teams, and therefore, not much was expected. At the same time, however, it is Brazil, and you do not ever rule them out of any international tournament. And Argentina would have done well to be able to bring Brazil to their knees yesterday in order to win the. And I am again congratulating them. I think it's a win that they should be proud of. I dedicated that particular result last night to the great Juan Diego Maradona, who would have been, instrumental in their previous successes, and he would have passed away last year due to medical issues. And all in all, it's a feel-good story. Feel good for Messi, feel good for Argentina, not so feel good for Neymar and the Brazilians. And as such, they're going to probably have to retool and come again. But Neymar, unlike Messi, has a lot of youth on his side still. So, it's a bittersweet moment for Brazilian fans, but at least you can see them also building to something greater. There's a lot of young stars coming through, and it'll be exciting to see them at next year's World Cup to see how they are able to perform and see if they can gain some level of respectability after the last World Cup, where the one thing that was most notable about them was that they were demolished 7-1 by Germany. But all in all, most persons would agree that Argentina had the better half in terms of the first half. But it was a very cagey game, not much dribbling, not skill being on display because a lot of hard tackles, a very tough game. And both teams were trying to neutralize the opponent's biggest threats, and were successful in doing so for the most part. Messi spurting an excellent chance late in the game, and Brazil just not capitalizing on any of theirs, with Martinez forced into at least two very good saves to keep the clean sheet. He was also awarded the Golden Glove of the tournament for his performances all around. So there's a lot of trophies and feel-good factor right now in the Argentine camp. This is something else I wanted to mention because because of being home, because of having the time on my hands, I was able to tune into the Wimbledon final, the Wimbledon men's final today, and I was able to witness or be part of everyone else witnessing history when Novak Djokovic won his sixth Wimbledon, 20th Grand Slam. He was given a good run for his money from his opponent, Bertolini, and who seemed to be a very good player, but it was an amazing performance by Novak Djokovic, and overall he seemed very much composed. He seemed in control of the game. He lost the first set 7-6. And from there, it was all Djokovic because he won the next three sets 6-4, 6-4, 6-3. It was not to say that he thought he thoroughly dominated. I think he chose his moments when to break Bertolini's score, Matteo's score. But at the end of the day, it's the experience that told, and he was able to hold out for what was a historic victory on his part. Made more so historic because now you have a situation where for the past almost 20 years, you've only had Rafael Nadal, Roger Federer, or Novak Djokovic winning the major Grand Slam titles. He also has the opportunity to do what has not, or what has been done only once before, which is to win what is called the Grand Slam if he wins the US Open later on this year. I believe Federer will be playing in that particular one, so he will be given some serious opposition as it relates to his quest for getting the Grand Slam sweep this year. But in terms of his overall form, in terms of his performances, he's definitely working hard and definitely would have earned his trophy and the record 20 trophies that himself and the other two champions have. I'd be interested to see breaks the duck. Well, I shouldn't say the duck wins the 21st. Then there's often the debate about whether or not there will be the considered the greatest of all time. That debate always comes in because you've got all three of these amazing athletes all on 20 Grand Slam wins. Forgive my little interruption and stuttering there. It's because Italy just equalized through Bonucci, a little bit of a scramble in front of the goal, and Italy is now level with England. So England now have to go do it all over again. 1-0, 1-1, Italy versus England, and that's in the 67th minute. So lots to play for still in the Euro 2020 final. And the last topic I would like to touch on just briefly before I would want to continue following up the Euro game is the discussion surrounding Sha'Carri Richardson, the US track and field athlete. Bright future for the young lady. She seems to be the new version of Flojo in some circles, in the sense that she has that flagrant style, personality, and she runs really, really quickly. She is one of the record setters so far in this track and field season, and obviously one of the USA's track and field hopefuls. Now, what had happened with Sha'Carri, for those who are not familiar with all that's happening with track and field, is that she would have won her US qualification and then tested positive for marijuana. Yes, tested positive for marijuana in the system. There's a bit of a debate right now going over as to whether or not that should be amongst the banned substances. So I thought I should just spend a few minutes just to share my views on it, so as to clarify, what I think of the entire fiasco. Now, obviously, the US and a lot of her backers are challenging the World Anti-Doping Association's rules about marijuana being included on the list. And then there's some discussion about whether or not something could have been done before the Olympics, and in the sense that it's not necessarily a performance enhancing drug. And she herself, and to her credit, came out and admitted quite readily that she did, and she was using it as a coping mechanism for the death of her birth mom, which as she, 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 she involved in terms of her rationale for doing it. And it's a young lady, 19 years old. Um, they're gonna make mistakes at this stage in the career, and to be penalized to the point where you're not allowed to perform at the Olympics is going to hurt them. But I wanted to play a brief clip for the listeners because I also wanted to be able to give you an idea as to how I personally felt about the hype surrounding her, as well as, you know, there's so much more to come from her that I think it's a bit too early to lament her, her not being involved in this edition of the Olympics this year. Mind you, the Olympics themselves are on a little bit of a hazy future for this year, as it is as well too because of the COVID-19 pandemic and its impact in Japan. I think in Japan right now under some level of state of emergency as well. And so just to clarify, I'm just running a bit of a program that I would have been listening to online, social media, about Sha'Carri and what resulted from her suspension or some of the discussions that's coming out of her suspension. Just listen on here with me and share my thoughts hereafter.
No, man, if Sha'Carri were to go to the Olympics, she was going to bring back the gold. Maybe not. Because there's a woman, Elaine Thompson, who just ran in Jamaica, who ran a 1071 just yesterday, faster than anything Sha'Carri's ever run. And Elaine Thompson's not the best Jamaican. There's a woman in Jamaica, Shelly Ann Fraser Price, who ran 1063 just 2 weeks ago. Better than Sha'Carri's ever run. There's a number like that of several people who could have actually inhibited Sha'Carri from the growth that she's had right now. Now, it's been convoluted because it's like, man, you weren't able to go out there and compete at the highest level. Yeah. But from a stance and fame standpoint in America, remember, you can earn a lot of dollars just by having a huge platform, Logan Paul, etc. Sha'Carri had 300,000 followers 2 weeks ago before Olympic trials. How do I know? Because I was at Olympic trials. How do I know? Because I keep up with track and field as much, if not more, than anybody on TV. Sha'Carri has right now. People like Michelle Obama, Gabrielle Union, Nelly tweeting about her. Sha'Carri had 70,000 Twitter followers just 2 weeks ago. She has over 470,000 now. She passed because big dog. And if we're being real, she hasn't yet accomplished anything. She hasn't won USA's because her performances are invalid. So what has she accomplished? She has the collegiate record. She has a collegiate record at 1075. But from a pro level, she hasn't accomplished anything. It has all eyes on her. So if I'm actually being real, looking at her as her agent, looking at her as Nike, who's her endorser, this is huge. You are the most notable person in track and field, more notable than Allison Felix, who is the most decorated track athlete of all time. You are the most notable person in track and field, and you haven't even won anything yet. Allison Felix has been through 5 Olympic Games, 5 of them. From age 18, Sal, you would know better than I because you grew up in this country. I saw her. From age 18 to now, I think Allison is age 34. Allison had a kid by C-section in like 2019 and just made the Olympic team again today. Now, we ain't talking about Allison Felix in all 12 or so of her medals, including several golds. We're talking about Sha'Carri. So if we're being real, Sha'Carri is not losing right now. She may not have the opportunity to win on the Olympic stage, but when it comes down to brand and brand building, which can be just as lucrative, she's not losing, nor does she have to go face these Jamaicans that are about that action. Oh man, I got some jokes in there, but I'm gonna let it be because I'm trying to be a little bit serious on this one. Am I lying though? You ain't never.
Yeah, so I really hope you're able to hear what that discussion was about. And he was basically saying that Sha'Carri, as much as she may have lost out on appearing at the Olympics this time around, she may have gotten the better rub of fortune, if there's such a thing, in the sense that the likelihood of her medaling at this Olympics was very slim. I have this theory of female track athletes, especially, whom tend to get better with age. You very rarely see uh, female athlete hitting, track athlete hitting their stride and winning consistently in their younger years. And then, okay, so you haven't mentioned the other Americans who would have been just as fast or faster, definitely have more medals, such as Alison Felix, who obviously is not the most celebrated because she refused to sign the contract with Nike and decided to build her own track brands and everything else. So she's not going to be celebrated as much as Shakiri would be, but yet she is very well rated, highly medaled, highly respected track athlete from the US. And for those who follow track very closely would know that she's still expected to medal at this upcoming Olympics once she is able to appear. Then you've got the Jamaican powerhouse track and field machinery, of which Elaine Thompson and Shelly-Ann Fraser-Pryce are the two most notable names, but there's so many other young names coming out of Jamaican track and field machinery there that there's no way outside of the hype that Sha'Carri was given, there's no way she could have seriously been expected to win anything at this time. There was too much against her, going against her, and they may have actually saved her blushes by not allowing her to participate. Same token, from a superstar perspective, from an endorsement perspective, she got everything she could need. Because if you have Michelle Obama following you, then you know that you are going to go or you are going places. And I do hope that she doesn't use this as an opportunity to get discouraged and fall off the bandwagon and continue participating in the activities that would have got her suspended for the period of time. But she would use this as a stepping stone to improve her performances, improve her times, and her time will come. You know, like Flojo before her, who was one of my favorite athletes up until the likes of Merle Naughty and the others. They, and now this new generation of Jamaican track and field athletes, she seems to have with her the hopes of American sprint in the next few years. So go back to the drawing board, go back to basics, try to understand what's required of you, try to understand the level of responsibility that's being placed on you now, given your recent status, and make wiser decisions. Make wiser decisions about who is allowed in your camp, you know, in terms of the type of influences, because certainly she didn't acquire this on her own and, you know, and do all of this by herself without anyone there to be able to support, whether or not they may argue that the support is basically because of the loss of her birth mother or otherwise. You know, it's a learning experience, a stepping stone for Sha'Carri. But let's not get too carried away with it. Let's not get too carried away with the hype. Let's not get too carried away with the sympathies either, because I would not have liked to see what would have happened with all the hype that she had she gone to the Olympics with a fully fit Jamaican sprinting machinery. Silver medal. I don't even see silver medal. I don't even see her meeting Alison Felix. She may have gotten the silver medal in the relays if she were allowed to run the relays, which I think is one of the options that they just decided to move. So yeah, Sha'Carri, I mean, you've got the world on your shoulders right now in terms of support, and we are all going to be looking very keenly to see what is going to happen with you over the next few years. At the same time, you know, it'll be good to see you bounce back from this setback and regain your status as a world, or get a status, build a status as a world. So yeah, that was my little piece on Sha'Carri Richardson and what she will be able to do. So what I can say at this point is, you know, unfortunately, all of those who are going through, who've qualified, And, I don't know yet what the status is, as I said, because there's so much going on in terms of the Tokyo organizers and trying to get the Olympics sorted out. And we're not even certain at this point if we're going to have Olympics with fans and what type of quality of Olympics we have in all of the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic and what has been. So, as I said, today would not be a full program. Today will just be a shortened version due to the fact that I am still very distracted by the conclusion of the England-Italy Euro 2021 final, where Italy qualified in the 67th minute through Leonardo Bonucci. And we are now in the last 10 minutes. Obviously, there's the extra time consideration as well as penalties, and there's a lot more to come in terms of football. And this game is very fast-paced. This game is very enthralling, very intriguing. So it's taking a lot out of me just to concentrate on doing what I'm doing now, as well as focus on the game at hand. So for those who have tuned in, thank you for being here. I do hope the program was as edifying for you as it was for me. For those who are logging for a little more, I would make up for this over the next few weeks. As I promised, I would have tried to secure interviews with Atiba Harris, who is the next for the Association president. I haven't gotten a firm commitment from him in terms of a day yet, but he has indicated through his close friends that he would be willing to join me on the program. Other than that, we also have a bit of Patriots follow-up, players, management, coaches, discussions. So there's a lot to be discussed there. Lots of West Indies cricket people can discuss. We need to get Richard back online as well too, in terms of reaching out and discussions about the direction of West Indies cricket progress, where we still need more work. So thank you again for joining with me this afternoon on this shortened version of the bench meeting. I do look forward to being with you again next week, Sunday, same time, same place. By then we would know who the Euro champions are, and we can have a little more of an in-depth discussion around it, probably with their fans or otherwise. And on a personal note, those of you knowing that we in St. Kitts and Nevis will be out of lockdown officially tomorrow, that does not mean that we are out of danger. We just need to be a lot more cautious. And I think if we spend more time applying ourselves to the protocols and doing what we're supposed to do, then we are doing ourselves a greater service in terms of protecting ourselves and in cases of this. So follow the protocols, sanitize, be safe. I wish everyone a safe return to work and normalcy in the next few weeks. And as we all try to fend off this epidemic, as well as maintain our sanity and good health. So take care. And this is Mr. Kenneth Bob, signing off from the bench meeting. So have a pleasant day.
For real and unbiased sports news and reviews, from cricket to football and everything in between, with in-depth interviews from your favorite sports icons, check out The Bench Meeting, hosted by Kenneth Bob, on Sundays from 4 to 5 p.m. only on Win Media SKN.